With all of the recent buzz surrounding Silent Hill F and the hopefully soon to be announced release date of last year's Silent Hill 2 remake on Xbox, now that its timed PlayStation exclusive has finally ended, I thought it'd be the perfect window to dive into the series and its complicated history with the Xbox ecosystem.
That's fascinating.
Fear is a universal thrill, whether it's on the big screen or behind a controller. The idea of experiencing horror within the safe confines of a video game is something many of us have come to deeply appreciate and seek after. It's been a strange rivalry, and as someone who grew up in an Xbox household, I've always felt a bit invested in defending the big green. Not so much these days, especially with Microsoft's recent price hikes, but back in the glory days, when Microsoft was willing to take bold risks that genuinely helped shake up the gaming landscape. It was a time of experimentation and pushing familiar boundaries, and with the inclusion of plenty of horror titles, that change was a welcome one. Despite the original Xbox living in the shadows of PlayStation 2, it still managed to carve out its own space in the horror genre. Titles like Fatal Frame, Obscure, and Cold Fear all showed that Xbox wasn't afraid to get spooky and get those titles on their platform, even if it wasn't always the first console that came to mind for horror fans. So let's dive in and dissect what makes this time in gaming history so fascinating. The original Silent Hill launched in February 1999 for the original PlayStation. Although it arrived fairly late in the console's life cycle, it still beat the original Xbox to market by 2 years and was developed exclusively for Sony hardware. Because of that, and due to technical limitations and hardware differences, we never saw a port make its way to Xbox, which is a shame for fans who missed out. But what we got was well worth the wait.
This is where Silent Hill 2 was created, here in Tokyo, somewhere on the 42nd floor of these buildings.
In 2001, we were introduced to one of my favorite games of all time. Silent Hill 2 dropped for the PlayStation 2, and it was a massive leap forward in atmosphere for the series, storytelling, and psychological horror. And just a few months later, Konami released Silent Hill 2 Restless Dreams for the original Xbox. The Microsoft version wasn't just a re-release. It included an exclusive story called Born from a Wish, a playable mini-campaign featuring Maria, who, if you've played the game, know is a mysterious and important character that seeing the story from her perspective was really different for the time. The PS2 version didn't have this at launch. It only became available later in a re-release called the Silent Hill 2 Director's Cut, and even that didn't make its way to North America immediately until it released in the Greatest Hits catalog. On top of that extra content, the Xbox version also benefited from some slight technical improvements. While both versions look and play similarly, the Xbox had sharper textures, smoother frame rates, and in some areas improved lighting and effects thanks to the Xbox's more powerful GPU. It's subtle, but if you were looking for the most complete, refined way to experience Silent Hill 2 back in 2001, Xbox might have been your best bet. Although some discourse online also claims that there's a lot of audio issues and other places of compression that lands the Xbox port a lower tier than its original PlayStation release. Even today, the Xbox version of Silent Hill 2 is significantly cheaper than the PS2 version, and you might be wondering, why would the more complete version be more affordable? The original PlayStation audience has nostalgia baked in, and for many fans, Silent Hill is tied to the PlayStation brand. Xbox flew under the radar for a lot of gamers at that time, so it doesn't carry the same collector's premium feel. Even the Xbox's flagship titles don't carry that high of value on the secondhand market. So if you're looking to experience this incredible game, picking up a copy of the Xbox version might be the way for your wallet, because today this title draws new fans every year. Not to mention after last year's Bluebird remake, to only add to the importance of this history. Every time I play it, I find myself excited, even though I know I'm about to cry for the next 2 weeks. Back then, it showed that Konami was willing to break tradition, platform boundaries, and experiment with where these beloved franchises could live. And more importantly, it gave Xbox horror fans something to be proud of during a time when PS2 had the clear lead in Japanese-developed horror.
In my restless dreams, I see that town, Silent Hill.
Despite the surprising success of Silent Hill 2 on the original Xbox, Konami made the decision not to bring Silent Hill 3 to the console. This left many Xbox fans scratching their heads, and if you can see this, I don't even own a copy of this game, not because it's just not on Xbox, but because it is so expensive to own these days.
Oh, hell.
I don't know that I can really realistically pull the trigger on this one. The main reason seems to come down to timing and audience. Silent Hill 3 was developed as a direct sequel to the original Silent Hill, which was a PlayStation exclusive. With the Xbox still struggling to gain traction in Japan, and Silent Hill 3 relying heavily on the knowledge of the first game's story, Konami likely saw little reason to shift focus away from their established PlayStation audience. Xbox, while more powerful on paper, didn't have the same foothold in the markets that mattered most to Konami. So instead of creating a separate version or risking low sales, they doubled down on PS2 where they knew the fan base was strongest. But then, just to make things really confusing, Konami made a surprising return with Silent Hill 4: The Room, launching in both PS2 and the original Xbox in 2004. By this point in the generation, the Xbox had firmly established itself in the Western market, especially in North America, where horror games were thriving at the time. Another important factor was the nature of Silent Hill 4 itself. Unlike Silent Hill 3, which was a direct sequel to the first game, The Room was more of a standalone experience. Its story, characters, and setting were loosely connected to the existing lore, but didn't require deep knowledge of the previous entries. That made it an easier sell to Xbox players who may have missed out on Silent Hill 1, 2, and 3. It also meant that Konami didn't have to worry about story continuity confusing a new audience. Microsoft had become more aggressive about securing third-party titles for its library, especially in genres where the Xbox had fewer exclusives. Horror at the time was one of those gaps. Unfortunately for most, Konami's fourth entry in the series was seen as a misstep, and almost flopped for the franchise. I think it's definitely grown some cult status and appreciation over the last few years, considering it was the last game made by the original Team Silent that had developed all the previous games. But it's still somewhat looked at as the redheaded stepchild of the family, and I'm a ginger, so I know what I'm talking about. In hindsight, it was a smart move, and one that really helped keep the franchise relevant across multiple platforms as the console wars were heating up. And that's the end for the original Xbox lifespan. But as the series was growing and the need for more frightening franchises heated up, we found things shifting with the times and the new console generation. This next game isn't exactly the next in the release window, but it's technically tied to the original 4 games, so it felt the most sense to include its mention here. In 2012, Konami released Silent Hill HD Collection for both Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, a move that should have been a celebration, especially for Xbox players who were finally getting Silent Hill 3 on the platform for the first time, but instead it became one of the most infamous remaster failures in gaming history. By this time, Konami had lost the original source code for both Silent Hill 2 and Silent Hill 3, forcing developers to work from incomplete, buggy builds. On top of that, Konami no longer held the rights to most of the original voice acting performances, leading them to re-record much of the dialogue with a new cast. You might recognize some of these voices today, but at the time, it just felt confusing. The HD collection suffered from numerous graphical bugs, issues that were especially noticeable on the Xbox 360 version. What should have been a definitive way to preserve 2 iconic horror games turned into a cautionary tale about careless remastering. To this day, the Silent Hill HD collection is considered one of the worst ways to experience Silent Hill 2 and Silent Hill 3, despite being the first time Xbox players could access both in one package. For many fans, it remains a frustrating reminder of how important preservation and respect for source material really is.
What's going on there? Hey, where are you taking me?
But while Konami was ignoring Xbox for its handheld and experimental entries, it was all in on the 360 for its 2 mainline Western developed titles, Silent Hill Homecoming in 2008 and Silent Hill Downpour in 2012. These were the first games in the franchise to be developed outside of Japan, Homecoming by Double Helix Games and Downpour by Vatra Games. The shift to American studios was meant to broaden the franchise appeal in Western markets, but many longtime fans felt that something essential was lost in the process. The tone changed, the psychological subtlety gave way to more action-heavy gameplay, clunky combat systems, and a different kind of horror that didn't quite match the slow burn dread of the original titles. While these games weren't complete disasters, they were divisive, and for many it marked the beginning of the franchise's identity crisis. From a sales perspective, both Homecoming and Downpour performed modestly at best. Homecoming sold around 500,000 units across the platform, not terrible, but not the kind of numbers Konami was hoping for. Downpour was hurt by the poor reception of the HD collection, which had released just a few months before that, and suffered from technical issues of its own, particularly the PS3 version, which you can see is the only one I own because, again, for what this game is overly priced on the secondhand market, so you get these finds where you can. Ultimately though, this era of Silent Hill felt directionless, between missed opportunities on Xbox with Origins and Shattered Memories, and a tonal departure with the Western developed games. The franchise struggled to find its footing. The horror was still there, sometimes even inspired, but the soul of Silent Hill, that uniquely haunting and deeply psychological experience, felt diluted. For Xbox fans, it was a strange time. They were finally getting access to more entries in the series, but many of them lacked the qualities that made Silent Hill legendary in the first place. In my opinion, the 2000s represent the true golden age of psychological horror in gaming. While there are still incredible titles being released today that are more polished than ever, that era had a unique atmosphere, shaped by technical limitations that forced your imagination to fill in the blanks in the darkness, and a pre-microtransaction mindset where games were built to be complete experiences from the beginning. There was a rawness and sincerity to horror back then that's hard to replicate. The great thing about today's games, though, is it does seem to be that the console wars are somewhat a thing of the past, unless you're Microsoft declaring war on your entire consumer base. The audacity to raise prices the way they have over the last few months is a generational low, but hey, that's what emulation is for, I guess. If you like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, or if you're really feeling naughty, subscribing to the channel, as it really helps me out when fighting against the algorithm. I'll be back with more Silent Hill, Halo, and other various titles in the coming months. And thanks to you all, this channel, after being around for a few years, has finally made partner status. That's no small feat, and I'm incredibly thankful to each and every one of you guys who has stuck around to support the channel. I'll see you next time, somewhere beyond the fog.